I would like to enter into the record of this hearing Mr. McDow's testimony today that he provided with regard to the MSP program and the necessity for that. I think it would be useful to have it on our record.
Without objection.
Thank you. I think I'd probably leave that go for a while. Chairman Hunter had been talking about the UAVs or UASs, or RPAs as the military now calls them. There is a program that the CBP is conducting. They have 9 Predator B and Guardian, a maritime variety of the Predator B, that they're using to patrol the border. Recently, the analysis that's been done on their program by the Department of Homeland Security indicates that that program is just totally inefficient and ineffective. They're spending some actually $600 million annually on that program, presumably to protect like 1/100th of the Mexican border. It seems to me that we need to make some choices about here where $600 million is being spent. We know that the Coast Guard has a need for better surveillance, some of which will be provided by new ships, but others of which might be more effectively provided by UASs or UAVs or RPAs, whatever we want to call them. And so I think this committee ought to take this issue up with the Homeland Security committees about where $600 million could be most effectively spent in protecting our borders. Since there's a whole lot more sea border than there is land border, perhaps that $600 million could be better spent by the Coast Guard acquiring maybe those very same assets. So I put that out there. Mr. Zumkov, Admiral, excuse me, you normally don't go mess with other people's budgets, but it seems to me you are part of the Homeland Security Department. Have you talked to the Secretary about transferring the $600 million and the 9 Predators to you to be used more effectively?
That would be the equivalent of internecine warfare, Ranking Member. But what we do have within the Department of Homeland Security, we have a Joint Requirements Council. These 9 Predators predate the stand-up of this Joint Requirement Council. An example is working with the Navy, we identified the right sensor package to go into our fixed-wing aircraft. It's called Minotaur. But it's a defense project. It's been, the R&D, the work has been done. And through this Joint Requirements Council at the Department of Homeland Security, it's not just Coast Guard, but CBP is now acquiring this Minotaur project as well. As we mentioned earlier, the remotely piloted aircraft, whatever we want to call them, it's merely a platform. It's the sensor pod that you put in it. And the sensor pod that's in it right now does not afford for the wide aerial surveillance that we would need, but you could argue you might need that same capability whether you're flying over land or over the water as well. But that would be a process to work through the Joint Requirements Council that has been stood up under this Secretary's leadership within the Department of Homeland Security.
You got a problem with internal warfare when you got $600 million that's inefficiently used by the CBP and you're not willing to go grab it and be able to use it more effectively by putting in the new sensor system that the Navy and you are jointly commissioning?
Yeah. We're at an inflection point where under this Secretary's leadership, it's all about unity of effort. And so we've created joint task forces where we've combined the cultures of Coast Guard, CBP, and ICE. And we're operating at the front line. But if you have one agency now second-guessing how another administration expends its appropriation.
It is our business to second-guess. And we have a report that there's $600 million that's being spent very inefficiently by CBP with their Predator B UASs. and I'm curious as to whether they could be repurposed. Let me ask you a specific question. Could they be repurposed with a different sensing device for the use by the Coast Guard?
Absolutely.
Absolutely? Is that your answer?
Absolutely. Yeah. Identifying the right sensor pod that
And
goes.
is that this new Minotaur thing that you're talking about?
This would probably be yet a different sensor pod.
Does it exist today?
That I can't answer.
I think,
we'll have to do
I
our
think the
homework
chair
on that.
answered the question as yes, it does. Well, it's our business to conduct internal warfare within the departments and to decide where the money goes. We have evidence that the CBP is inefficiently using $600 million and 6 or 9 Predators that could be repurposed for the Coast Guard. If you had them, could you use them?
Yes.
Thank you. No more questions.